by having that building physics knowledge and having certifications in using the software to work this stuff out, we can actually turn the I think it'll work if we do this, this, and this to I know it will work, provided that we insulate like this and we finish things off this way, and we, the details got to look like that. Which for me is just takes the guesswork out of the process, which takes risk out.
Hi, I'm Sharon. I help people create healthy, valuable homes. I'm an architectural designer and passive house designer. I'm also a Homestar professional at Smart Living Spaces. So welcome to the monthly vlog where I chat to like-minded professionals about the challenges and opportunities that they're embracing in their building better journey. My hope is that if you are thinking of building or renovating your home, you will be empowered and inspired to make it a better one, not just a standard or common one. Today I am talking to Jackson Digney from Enduro Builders. He is based in Adelaide, and Jackson first came to my attention through his social media posts. He kindly set aside some time to hop on a Zoom with me and tell me about his passion for making better homes that serve people, and also his drive to empower the building community. So here is my chat with Jackson. So hi everyone, I'm here with Jackson from Enduro Builders, and he's from across the ditch in Australia, in Adelaide. So Jackson, how long have you been building? What got you into the profession in the first place?
What got me into the profession? No one's ever asked the question that way.
Sorry about that.
I like it. So I've been building as a I suppose the full-time commitment for the last 17 years. I've been running Enduro Builders, which was my building company, for the last 10. Way back when I finished school, I wanted to be a property developer, and I went off on a very circuitous route to get back to winding up as a builder. And the reason that I got into building, or was always interested in building, was that I think I always saw it as a way of really leaving a lasting mark behind. Because when you build things really well, they can be reasonably expected to last for 100 years, and that's a pretty good legacy to leave behind.
Nice. That's really nice. So you tend to focus on high performance and passive houses. What prompted you to get into the passive house space?
I come from a family focused on self-sufficiency, and that covers lots of areas of your life, like financial self-sufficiency, skills self-sufficiency, and goes right through to where you can within the modern life, being at least aware of where your food comes from, and how to be self-sufficient with food where you can be. And so that kind of led into sustainability, which led me into energy efficiency, which led me into air tightness, and then ultimately into passive house. And that, I mean, took 10 seconds to say, but it probably took 4 or 5 years to go through that process. And once I got into passive house, then I got into building science. And what I love the most about the building science side of things is that when people come to us with an idea, we will either be able to say, yep, we've done that before and we know it doesn't work for these reasons, like using aluminium frames in windows is going to cause a condensation problem, as a really basic example. But then when someone comes to us with something new that we've not done before, or a product or a way of building, or they want to do something with a massive cantilever that's going to need steel, and that steel is going to pass through the thermal envelope, as an example. By having that building physics knowledge and having certifications in using the software to work this stuff out, we can actually turn I think it'll work if we do this, this, and this, to I know it will work, provided that we insulate like this and we finish things off this way, and the details got to look like that. Which for me just takes the guesswork out of the process, which takes risk out. And so all of that just landed me going, like, the best way for me to reduce my risk as a builder and ensure that I actually deliver everything I promise to clients is by having a solid understanding of all this building physics and passive house stuff. And then, of course, knowing that if you get all of that right, you'll build a structure that will definitely last for 100 years. And so it just all gelled together to be like that. Yeah, this is the way to go. And every time we explain it to someone new that starts at Enduro, by the time we're done explaining it all, they're like, yeah, that makes total sense. Why doesn't everyone do this? Let's just worry about what we do.
I had the same thing doing the passive house training. It was just like there's a system, and I've got tools, and I suddenly, just like you, that confidence and a surety of what I was going to be able to deliver. And as you say, it just takes the risk. It reduces the risk in business. So yeah, no, I love it. I love it. You're quite big on educating people and breaking down the language of building better. I follow you on social media, so hence why I wanted to chat to you, because I think it's very easy to get into the weeds and get quite technical about this building better and this building science, but you're very good at breaking that down and explaining that to everyday people of why they should build better. So what are the stories that you hear from clients? I mean, you've got probably quite a good pre-qualifying system already, and people are coming to you because they know what you do. But what are some of the stories that people tell you, or the excuses that people use as to why they shouldn't build better? And what are some of the, I guess, myths that people have around building better that you've come across?
It usually starts as cost or climate. So cost is, everyone gets that straight away. People think it's going to cost them a lot more. In the case of working with us, I've spent a lot of time and a lot of money really dialing in how we build these houses to make for a very repeatable process when it comes to how the structures are put together. Even though we haven't yet built two homes the same, there's a lot of similarities from one house to the next, regardless of how it looks. And I think sometimes you find that people hide behind that, it's like, it's all custom, so everything you start from scratch. And I'm like, well, no, actually, like, the way that, let's go to the very basic thing, like a stud wall is built pretty much the same way no matter where you go in the world. And then from there you sort of go, well, so is this, and so is this part, and so is the ventilated cavity. And so then so that partly resolves the cost one. We've had enough cases of custom designed homes with quotes that was sort of a long way down the process of going ahead, and then the owners decided they wanted to build an energy efficient home. They came to us for a price, where those have turned into projects for us because we've been able to give a comparison price for a better performing house that's been very close, and in a couple of cases less than the custom built price, which I always found really interesting. And like any builder, initially alarming, because I'm like, well, what did we miss? We must have missed something.
Yeah.
But it just went to show that like we've really dialed in the process. So when we talk through that side of things with clients, they start to go, okay, cost isn't actually as big a concern as we thought it was, provided that you're being compared with other custom home builders. If you're comparing to a volume builder, we're always going to be more expensive than a volume builder, because a volume builder is doing the minimum of the minimum of the minimum, and sometimes even less than the minimum in some areas, and getting away with it, which is a whole nother conversation. And then of course is the climate. The climate. People go, our climate's really mild, and they usually don't have to look too many weeks back in the weather reports to find an example of where the climate wasn't mild, regardless of the time of year, and be able to, just say to clients like, do you think when it's 30 degrees, is that mild? Like, oh no, it's pretty hot. I'm like, okay. Do you think when it's getting down like 8, 7, 6 degrees at night, is that mild? And most clients by then start, they've caught themselves, and some of them go, oh no, no, you're right, that is pretty cold. And others go, no, that's very mild. And I'm like, would you go and stand out in 6 or 8 degree weather with, just a t-shirt on? Like, well. So you usually manage to, like, there's lots of angles to take to sort of go, hey, like, what you've come to us for is a house that, regardless of what's going on outside, your house is going to stay at a pretty constant temperature, or at the very least in a very tight band of temperature, with very little energy input on those extreme ends of outside temperature to maintain the inside temperature. And that's usually when people start to go, oh yeah, okay. And sometimes you get the sort of the last little kickbacks of argument about whether it's worth it or not, with people saying, oh, but I thought all this stuff was mainly for like really cold regions like Europe. Like, well, if you have got any European friends that are expats that have moved to Australia from Europe, and if they grew up there, just ask them what they think about Australia, because my experience has been that the houses that we've built for Europeans that have moved to Australia is that they said they've never experienced such cold until they came here, certainly in Adelaide. So that to me speaks volumes, especially when some of them come from the UK and Germany and France in many cases.
I have a similar thing here. I mean, we have a building code that only really focuses on heat loss. So people say, oh, passive houses only belong in cold climates. And I'm like, well, perfect place, because our building code only considers heat loss. But it sounds to me like one of the issues that you would be having, well, you'd have heat loss as an issue, but you'd also have overheating as a massive issue in most of your housing stock. By the sounds of things, we have our own issues here with overheating.
Overheating is probably a bigger issue than keeping them warm. And the thing that I really like about, because we put nearly every house through the passive house planning package in some form or another, and one of the areas that we really lean on it, even when we're not doing certified passive houses, is the shading calcs. Because using design pH, you can really quickly draw in some shading and then spit it out the other end in the PHPP and see what the impact has been on the energy balance of individual windows, which is obviously cherry picking information out of the passive house planning package. However, it's useful information if you're just looking at individual windows and shading. And certainly for us, we found that to be really helpful with looking at particularly temporary shading solutions. and balancing those against cost, and then giving homeowners feedback of like, we've got a couple of homes where we've put in provision for the power for exterior roller blinds
Mhm.
and not included them in the building contract. And the owner obviously knows that. And we've said, look, just see how you go in one summer. All of the numbers say that you're probably going to get a bit uncomfortably hot. And if you put those roller blinds in, that will solve that problem. But to keep the show on the road and keep your job on budget, you know, by the time you get around to this, you'll have recovered a bit. And, you know, if you're happy to do that, knowing that you might overheat a bit the first summer in the house, then, you know, let's do it. Let's tackle it that way. And a lot of homeowners are fine because we've got that knowledge that we can kind of back up in our explanations. We're also being really upfront with clients about, hey, we've identified this problem, that by the numbers, you might find it uncomfortable, but we also accept that subjectively, it might not trouble you, because I've also had experiences of people where I go to their homes and they're quite hot and they love it. Like that suits them better. And the difference is that if you're comparing that to like solar passive principles design, there's, you know, if you sit down with a designer that's done solar passive design and you say like, can you prove out like how will the house perform? They're like, oh, it should perform well because we've got the glazing facing north and we've shaded the western facade, and like they've done the principles, but there's no calculation. And I know that because I'm kind of, I think I've fortunately or unfortunately built a bit of a reputation as being a bit anti the NAFA's star rating system. I know that you can get some useful information out of it, but they kind of really lost me when I could get an extra, I think it was an extra half a star on our display home by putting ceiling fans in. I was like, well, that's a subjective measure. I've got as many clients that love ceiling fans as I have that hate them. So that's not actually, and it's also not changing the temperature of the house. It's just moving the air around. So, and I also know where you can do a lot of manipulation to get a certain result that may not actually translate to the real world performance. And so that's why we sort of base it. Yes, we do star ratings because it's a compliance pathway, but for us it's a secondary thing to our passive house planning package work.
That's awesome. It sounds like you are using PHPP and Design PH as a design tool, which is what we need to do to figure out the best path forward. Jackson, you're really big on pulling people. I think you said earlier in our chat offline, you said, you know, you want to raise people up with you. So you talk to me a little bit about what you do for your industry peers, you know, almost, I suppose, quote unquote, your competitors, although I don't think you see them quite like that, you know, because you're big on educating people and pulling them along this journey.
Yeah. So I own another business called ClimaSure, which got started when I started distributing Proclima membranes in South Australia. And that business also offers consultancy in a range of areas: passive house planning package work, WULFI, thermal bridge calcs, and of course, just answering the questions of builders of like, how do I do this, and how you're meant to assemble that, and how on earth do we get this ventilated cavity to work, and what do we do when it's a parapet detail, and all of those practical questions are the ones that we answer by literally providing the details that we've developed at Enduro. And I do that because I really believe that a rising tide floats all the boats, and more builders understanding this stuff means more builders that are going to be marketing their understanding in order to capture a market of people that are looking for better performing buildings. And that means more of the people that are in the market for a builder are going to be seeing the same or similar things marketed. And they will start in turn to compare builders on that commitment to building comfortable, healthy homes. And then that'll be closely followed by their knowledge. Because there's obviously can be a gap between commitment and knowledge. And I suppose that's what ClimateSure is there for, is to help the builders close that gap up so that they don't create, they don't literally build anything that is going to create a massive warranty nightmare for them and for their homeowners. And yeah, there'll always be builders that just don't care and will just stick to the minimum. And there'll always be a client base in the industry that just wants the minimum. And that's totally fine. That's, you know, I'm not worried about that bit.
That's not your bubble. That's not the world you live in. No.
Yeah.
So what's something that you are excited to be working on or working towards? Because you strike me as someone who doesn't sit still, who's obviously delved into a lot of development and learning and sort of growing. What's exciting you right now in what you're doing?
I've got a few things going on. The first one is that I'm really working hard to try to find a site where I can do a 1 to 8 townhouse development, all passive house. Because once you start putting the buildings together, you get the adiabatic surfaces between each tenancy, which dramatically reduces the cost of building, and makes it a lot easier to build a cost competitive certified passive house townhouse, essentially, that gives a return to investors, which at this rate will be me, and obviously gets, you know, sells at a market premium, and that's certainly being reinforced by watching some of the stuff that's being built at the moment that is selling for a significant premium, and it's minimum code, and it's selling for a significant premium because it's new and shiny, which is, you know, that's pretty understandable. We're also working on, and we actively have standardized plans. Our standardized plans, we've got a couple that suit you know your regular flat development site, and then we've got a couple that work for steep sites, and they are all certified passive house. And we've had a few goes at marketing them, and we're just working to find the right angle to sell them at, to help people go, this is a way for me to get a house that I'd like to have, like a high performing house that's comfortable and healthy, without having to go through the rigmarole of custom design. Because I know there's lots of people that just like, I just want the product, I don't want to go through all that custom design work. So we're trying to fill a gap, and I'm sure that there's a gap there. We're just struggling a bit to find it, but I'm not giving up. And the other thing that we're starting to really look at now is vertical integration. It's always, I see a lot of areas where the whole thing of builders running with subcontractors, it does generate some productivity problems. And yeah, I'm starting to look at like where can we vertically integrate the business to make us even more cost competitive in the space of building high performance homes.
I love it. You're echoing my sentiments. I have I call them pre-designed concepts with small smart spaces. Doing, I think, something very similar to you is that you're offering those people that would be stuck with the belief that they have to go to a group home building company and get the bare
Yeah,
minimum because that's the only way it's going to happen for them, and try and break
yeah,
down those barriers of process and cost and affordability. Yes, and I'm also always looking at efficiency. So it's great to know someone else somewhere else in the world is doing it too, and I'm not just in my
that's right.
crazy little bubble. Um, so
Yeah.
anyone who's listening to this, I encourage you to follow Jackson on social media. Jackson, do you just want to tell people how they can get in touch with you, or if anybody's listening to this in Adelaide, they want to get in touch with you, or what your social media handles are so that they can follow you and get to know a little bit more about you?
Yeah. Well, Enduro Builders is easy. It's just
Yeah,
Enduro Builders. And
I'll
Climasure is Climasure SA
I'll put the
on
link to
Instagram.
those in the newsletter or at the bottom of this video. So,
Yeah.
Jackson, thank you for what you do. We're just walking through treacle and finding ways to build better and make it possible for everyday people. So I really appreciate what you do, and thank you very much for your time.
No worries.
Favorite saying from Jackson is that a rising tide floats many boats. Thank you, Jackson, for your time. I've put the links to his building and supplier companies below so that you can get in touch with him. Now, understanding really is key. So, if you're thinking of renovating or building a new home, whether it requires building consent or not, I would love to have a chat with you to see how we can steer you in the best direction that's right for you. The link to arrange that at a time that works for you is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe or follow me on your social media platform of choice. I do post daily little reels with some advice, and I will see you in the next one.